people, and welcome back to part 48 of Palaven, our vanilla Cities Skylines build. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you so much for the kind comments, suggestions and support on the last episode. You guys really enjoyed our little kind of converted warehouse European vibe that we went for here to help glue our two industrial areas together. And it's turned out quite nicely, hasn't it? I'm quite a big fan of it. Real big fan of this elevated railway as well. This really adds a lot to the build, I think. Especially as a little border between the nuclear plant and the actual housing itself. But I'm a big fan. However, in today's episode we are going to head right over to the other side of the map because we're going to be working on our industrial ports today. We've got a whole coastline here to work with. We'll probably end up taking up probably about this much space. We're going to do some terraforming here as well to get some stuff out into the water. And just kind of help bring a little more of a industrial vibe over to this part of town. And it'd be nice to see from the cinematics today, kind of looking out to this American skyline now. Kind of see downtown Palaven way off in the distance there. However, we do need to terraform first of all, and terrain is very uneven here, and we want to have some kind of slightly elevated highway vibes coming alongside the river, and then down into the port. So, let's get started, shall we? So of course, with any kind of major development and project that we're working on, we want to go ahead and terraform first. We're going to dig out a nice little level alongside the river here that the highway is going to flow under. Because eventually this highway will feed what will be the European side of the map. So we want to make sure that it's all kind of nicely decorated, nicely terraformed, no kind of weird angles going on. So we'll just run through with our level terrain brush first of all. And kind of see how far we can get. So there is quite a big shift in terrain. So that's definitely something we'll need to factor in, especially if we're going to be terraforming out in bulk like this. But I guess we'll kind of see how things go, right? Okay, so we've terraformed out kind of a base platform here for a highway to kind of flow over. I think rather than having the aesthetic of just a highway on the floor like this against, or on the ground rather, against the river, we're going to kind of come up with some slightly elevated vibes like we have done with the cycle highway in certain parts of the city. So I think if we come up to kind of an incline of 3, we'll get a nice little run down here, snap onto the road guard line of the existing highway. And we'll just start moving down, kind of in this fashion. I think again from the river, having this raised highway is going to be a nice change, and we'll definitely do something on stream to kind of transform this into some kind of impressive 3-way interchange. Some nice opportunities here today. Nice decoration. Okay, and then just keeping to our angle snap tool, we'll keep this running, making sure that we're all at the same level. That's why it's important that we terraform so things do stay on the same level as each other. Okay guys, so I think I have terraformed out Palaven's port. It's a little bit of super strange terrain to work with on Murky Coast, and the river kind of descends here. It's more like a waterfall, almost like a rapid. And how it comes down into the coast, you can see the change in height. Which would normally make it quite difficult to work with, but I think what we can do is get some really nice layers of height here, because we do have oil over here as well. If you look at our natural resources here, we will eventually have some kind of oil production. So I'm thinking maybe if we kind of come through and level off all this on one height, as people drive past this road, they'll kind of look down over to the port, which I think will be a little happy accident. I think we can all appreciate that, right? So with that in mind, let's go ahead and pick out that layer. And then we can just start to terraform that out as well. Super expensive today. We've already spent about 800,000 on terraforming. Welcome to Palaven, everyone. But you can kind of get the impression, right, how this is going to sit. See if we can bring some harbour vibes into this little bit of land here. But either way, this is going to give us kind of a good shape to go ahead and play with today. And we'll kind of see what we can get going here. We can, of course, always adjust the shape as we need to. So I think just to help fight the horrific terrain here, we're going to kind of come through with a tunnel. Which I don't think looks too bad, especially when they're kind of this close together. So some slight challenges, but I think we're on our way. So we're going to start coming out with some industrial port vibes today, aren't we? Okay, fantastic. Start out by bringing our 2 highways out, and we're going to keep moving in increments of 10 here, just so everyone stays nice and level. And then we'll just kind of start to see how things develop. We're just going to draw in some dirt roads, using the road guideline of the highway, so we know that we're remaining parallel here. Okay. And then we'll snap them like that. And I think what we'll do is we're going to use a little one-way toll booth Let's take another little section off this. Fantastic. So kind of like a security gate vibe, you know, I'm sure. For those that have been to kind of an industrial port in real life, it's they're very secure places. You can't just walk into these things. Okay, and I think we'll bring this one out by another 10. And I think we'll start to elevate up here. So let's maybe come out by 11. Come off the road guideline here. We'll come up by 3, which will give us a nice steady climb. And then I think kind of sticking to our intervals of 10. We'll come through with a curve. And that's going to give our port some nice elevated layers of height, of course, which I think is always appreciated, isn't it? I think everyone can get on board with that. Keep sticking to those intervals of 5 and 10 so everyone's nice and parallel. And then we can hook back in there and then allow these to turn around, okay? Very nice. So that'll give us a little bit of highway spice to start the port out today. I think that's going to be okay, at least for right now. Fantastic. Come ahead, I guess we can now downgrade this one into 2-lane actually. Yeah, I think that's what we will do. And then we'll carry straight out for a little bit. Again, sticking to those units of 10 and just kind of seeing how it sits within the atmosphere of the build. Especially when we're working with kind of larger infrastructure spice like this, right? I think it's important that we take our time with it. Okay, but already starting to see some nice concrete vibes develop, which is what we want for the port, right? I'm actually a big fan of these tunnels now, especially when you're looking in, like, into them from this angle like that. I think it's going to be quite nice. We'll start to draw in some keys. Of course, we'll need to terraform out here occasionally. But the keys won't be too much of a difficult job to draw in, I think, especially when we're working with quite a straight landmass like this. You can see where we need to trim up the shoreline a little bit, so that's fine. Just come in and do that. Now, the best way to do this is just kind of right-click at the bottom of the sea floor and then just cut away, almost like a little thin strip, right? Kind of like you're cutting something like pastrami. Okay, and then we just want to keep it on the 90-degree angle. That's what we want here. We'll terraform the land to actually fit the key. So again, right-click in the bottom. And then just bringing it onto kind of as straight as an edge you can get with these brush tools, of course. Sometimes not the easiest thing in the world to do, but it can be done. Okay, so there is the rough shape of our port with the keys in. And of course, every time we want to play with keys, we want to come in with slope terrain afterwards and just take away a lot of that dirt that sits up against the edge of them. Gives a much more kind of cleaner aesthetic, I think. Can see how it just pushes it all back, and then we're left with that kind of straight grey key, which will look a lot nicer once the water calms down, of course. Let's keep pushing it back in. Really easy. But I think just kind of drawing out a base shape. If you're just going to build the key on land, then of course, you know, that's going to work just as fine, but I think there's something about kind of terraforming out your own port that really gives you another layer of customizability, I suppose, if we're looking for a word for it. So I think the next assets we're going to place are going to be our cargo hubs and cargo harbours. Now the cargo hub does have a rail integrated into it, but I'm really not a huge fan of this asset just because of the way the rail looks kind of coming over the water. However, we do want rail included within the port, so I think we're going to bring a cargo rail station into this as well. Which I think will be okay. So first of all, let's place in our 2 cargo hubs. And everything here is going to be fed into kind of a one-way system that's going to run throughout the port, okay? Again, sticking to intervals of 10 here. We can make sure that we're just keeping it as nice as possible, right? We can get a nice curve through here into the exit of the port. It's also super important from kind of like a gameplay perspective, for once rather than detailing, is that your ports are kind of fed into one-way systems and directly into the highway, because these assets produce just like huge amounts of industrial traffic. And if they're trying to fight through like a town centre or a city centre or a suburb to get back to the highway, that's when we're going to have a little bit of a bad time. Okay, so let's continue this running in this fashion. We're not amazingly parallel here with these roads, but it's something we can live with. There is a sweet spot, come on. There we go. Get it in eventually. Okay. So yeah, the big red cranes are a key aesthetic here, aren't they? They have to kind of be in this part of town. It's looking very nice already, I think, isn't it? Of course, let's come in and change the road directions, so everyone's flowing in the right way we want them to. Okay. Fantastic. Wonderful. So we'll now kind of arrange the orientation of the next key asset, which will be the cargo train terminal. And now let's see where we can possibly squeeze this in. So again, really key, important asset. The rail is going to come from the right-hand side here. So having it kind of parallel with the highway here, I think will be a nice little spice design, okay? Okay, but there's some industrial vibes again to develop. Keeping the highway. Sorry, I just went very Manchester there for a second. Keeping the highway keeping the highway elevated is adding to the vibe, I think, isn't it? I think it is. But so far, this is what we're kind of working with. It's coming together already. Let's bring on working the rail line into kind of the port as well. So we'll snap parallel to this road guide line. And then we'll bring it out to about here. Let's grab our curve tool. And of course what we will do is just turn off all these assets for the meantime because they are pretty expensive and they're not being used just yet. And we burnt through Palaven's money again. I think next episode we might just turn on unlimited money. I guess we'll see though, right? Can't see how things pan out. Okay, fantastic. Let's focus on bringing the highway back down to earth now because we do want this to eventually touch down. So we'll come down here. And then we'll just start flowing in a nice pleasing way. So we'll hook the highway straight into the cargo harbours, ports, whatever we're going to call them today. And then what we're going to do is now start introducing some very distinct kind of industrial vibes into the port. So we're going again keeping everything in a one-way system. We don't want people kind of backing up into each other here and be kind of awkward things just to make things more difficult for people to get in and out of the port. Okay, so just kind of drawing some basic boxes here. Let's get everyone moving. So the industrial asset that we want to generate in a port is a 4x4 regular industrial zoning just like this, okay? And this will have a chance to spawn in an asset that looks like this. So it's just the cargo containers. And if we back these up onto each other, using the grid star that we want, we can get them to kind of repeat the pattern, right, and create a very, very heavy port vibe, which is absolutely what we're after today. So let's kind of figure out an orientation. So we're going to come out with a little one-way system here. And we're looking for those back-to-back 4x4 tilings, which are going to be here, right? And we can now start generating those port vibes in here. And where we have some space, of course, this is a great opportunity to come through with plenty of oil fencing in today's build, right? We're going to be using lots of this stuff. And then maybe as well, even just some kind of torn dirt textures with some of the vanilla path stuff. We can do concrete as well if we want to, maybe come down in kind of these little increments, right? A couple of different kind of designs and patterns we can get involved with today. And I think what a difference that makes to a port build, right? Very heavily repeated cargo pattern. Now you can look at kind of any ports across the world. Also shout out to subscriber 2C for all the port inspiration for today. If you guys aren't in our Discord, we have a real life city inspiration channel. I asked for some port inspiration and got an absolute ton. So nice little place. If you're not in there, it is linked down below. But we can definitely see this vibe coming across now, right? The less green in today's build, the better. We want very heavy industrial kind of cargo vibes. I guess we'll kind of see how that pans out, right? But for right now, everything's kind of coming together. We are also in dire need of some power, so let's come ahead and bring this down just temporarily. Until everyone is hooked together. So I think, just slightly rethinking the layout of things here, I'm going to switch the orientation of the cargo train station to face the highway, which allows us to integrate the rail a little easier. And then we'll just simply feed our cargo train station down into the one-way system. We're already getting some people in here now, very nice indeed. We're importing products, and I guess now, I have just been unhooked there, they build into the highway as well, by the way. If you were wondering why there's now suddenly cars here. So now I want to discuss kind of the placement of larger industrial assets to help bulk this build out, such as warehouses, also road maintenance depots as well. And these are really nice industrial looking assets that pair really nicely with the port. I'll also get some car parks in here today as well. So we can start kind of fleshing out the chunkier industrial aspect of Port Palaven, right? So of course we'll wait for some money to accumulate and then we'll start. So fantastic news everyone, the first ships are arriving into the port. Everyone kind of showing their papers as to what they're doing, right? We can see, right, this is one building. This is one harbour that produces this traffic. You have to give them highway connection pretty much straight away. I'm going to see some cars coming down here now. If you guys want to see how I kind of done this, very basic. We'll come through in a stream and make this a little more impressive. Just so it's not quite as helter-skelter, but I think we'll be okay for right now. Okay. Some nice kind of elevated highway vibes developing here now. Yes, please. But the important thing is that everyone's flowing, right? Might get a little bit of backup at the security checkpoint as they come through, but otherwise I think we're going to be okay. So I think we'll start with building something like a port entrance, almost like a place for workers to check in, if you like. Kind of something like that. Whatever justification you need to make a build, right? So I think again we'll kind of come through with some smaller supporting road action. Now let's go ahead and grab our road maintenance depot, which is going to hang out a little bit here. Again, pairs nice with the rest of the port assets, I think. I think it does. But again, the orientation is very important. Do we want it a little bit closer to this raised highway? And again, I know that I'm going to want car parks out the front of this thing. So we'll prepare some 2x2 squares to help with that. And then this does allow us to come through and place in our road maintenance depot building. Of course, for car parks, we're going to go ahead and set ourselves up at a really small district, something like this. Give it a local and organic produce specialisation, and then some lighter 2x2 alternated commercial zonings will help us generate some car parks in here, which I think will be nice for kind of the port entrance, right? Kind of the main building where you would go in your papers and whatnot. I don't know, I've never been to a port before, but I think you guys know the vibe, right? And organic teas. Okay. So wait for some Edison hyperchargers to come in. I don't think that's going to be too bad. A little bit of car parks, a road maintenance building. Kind of helps add to the port vibe, right? Lots of layers of fence developing here now as well, which is always important. There we go. Not bad so far, I don't think. Let's continue to have a discussion about what assets we can maybe have out here, right? Let's kind of keep... Let's redrawing our rail line a little bit, just so we're slightly straighter. Now let's start discussing what we can have here. So there are a couple of oil industry assets that work really nicely. It's these ones here, the ones with the containers. However, there's also some water assets that would work really nicely in a port as well. A lot of the tank reservoirs will go nicely here, some of the water treatment stuff too. I guess what we want to do is create almost like an industrial service area with a port, okay? Lots of these assets grouped together. The large warehouse is definitely an asset to have over here. And I guess for right now we can have this store, whatever, I guess it doesn't really matter. We'll go for Just commercial zone goods. Okay. And then we'll start to bring in some box patterns around the back of our larger assets here, just to help keep everyone flowing in the right direction. And I think what we will do is also just switch the orientation of the warehouse so it's not on the same road as the cargo train terminal. Okay, take away a couple of these props too, and we'll see what other assets we can squeeze in alongside this thing to allow it to fit in just a little easier. So I think kind of the front entrance into the port here, you know, what you drive past as you arrive into the port is going to be just as important. It's kind of how the rest of the port looks, right? So let's start bringing down some more one-way industrial roads. And we'll give a bordering road into the port here. Dive back into some of our assets. It looks like we can just about, maybe just about squeeze in a tank reservoir here. Now again, is one just enough? Do we want more than that? I think we do. However, we will just kind of back them onto each other, okay? So let's come here so we can leave a gap of 1 tile with a distance of 450. Let's go ahead and draw that in. And again, what we'll do is just help to repeat that pattern, maybe this side. Dropping it in like that. Yeah. You can definitely tell there's some kind of key industrial things happening over here, right? Then what we can do again with that oil fence is we'll just start to draw in up against the rail on the highway. And of course, plenty of overgrowth and rocks around here will help fill out some of those more dead areas during the daytime time-lapse, of course. So let's continue to discuss some more water assets maybe. Let's go and get some. How are we doing for water treatment? Yeah, we do need some actually. So let's get some water and sewage stuff in here. This will be a good opportunity to get involved with some of that. So I'm just going to change the orientation of a couple of the assets here. Decided that we'll have the warehouse on the kind of the alternate angle. And then what this will allow us to do is just come through and duplicate some tank reservoir patterns, which I think will help add to our industrial vibe, right? Okay, I'll have a couple of these in here. Let's bring some through this point, and then we'll flip these around onto their alternate side. Which I think, you know, that's kind of more the industrial vibe I was after. Definitely having these kind of packed in against each other like this is something that I'm a big fan of. And of course we'll rework our road network to hug them in. So I think we are going to run with maybe a little fishing harbour in here. Get some anchovies going maybe. So go ahead and hook these guys up. Throw ourselves a little fishing route. It's been a while since we've done any fishing. And introduce some different types of fish with some terraforming. We'll get some people flowing here to get some anchovies. And this will allow us to place in the fish factory, which I think we'll go for right about here. Let's make sure that this kind of fits in with our vibe, you know. Another industrial looking asset, it's got lots of fencing around it. And also got containers, which is a nice aesthetic touch to the rest of the port that we've got going on here. And kind of the back entrance of it here, all very industrial, very happy. So in order for the fish to actually get from the fishing harbour over to the factory, they can come back through our little one-way system here. This needs to be two-way. We will refine the one-way system, don't worry. Let's get these guys flowing back here. So now we'll have people come back through, they'll take the fish here, and then we can switch the direction of this one. We'll switch the whole direction of this road, so they can now drop the fish off, come back through, and then head back to the harbour. Which will be nice. I hope. I hope. Ports can be very tricky builds, guys. Ports can be very tricky builds. They can go wrong very quickly. Terraforming can get out of hand, and you know, things can just kind of fall apart quicker than you want to. Okay, so we're starting to see more of that green disappear now, which is exactly what we want to happen. Let's continue to look at some more industrial assets that could possibly make an appearance here. Okay guys, so slight change of vibe. I remember saying when we built the Gold Retrievers ore mine that we would save the industrial steel plant for the port. And super industrial looking asset, isn't it? We absolutely have to have this in here. So we've just taken away a few of those oil tank reservoirs, or the water tank reservoirs rather. And we'll see what we can do with this thing, right? So let's take away these internal road networks. Some more tank reservoirs out front, just so we can have the tank reservoir aesthetic in there, right? Okay, yeah, that's definitely more of an industrial vibe, I think, to use in the just the sewage assets, but we definitely will have a sewage asset in here. Maybe switch out for just one of the larger ones. I'm pretty sure things want metal, right? Yeah, okay, this one's metal. We are producing metal from the Gold Retrievers ore mine, so this can just store up metal to help feed the industrial steel plant, which this thing will make us a ton of money once it's got stuff coming in. And we can possibly even up the production rate as well, and we'll kind of see how quickly it burns through its metal supply. But definitely feeling that, definitely feeling that. And of course, where we have those empty spaces between the tank reservoirs, it's nice going with some dirt path. And maybe some smaller tufty bits of overgrowth here, just to help flesh it out. Which I think looks nicer when it's flanked by these two fences on the tank reservoir as well. Very nice indeed, very nice. Okay, so speaking about sewage assets, let's maybe have a little conversation about relocating them here up against the rail line. So if we were to bring in just a road on the angle tool here, as close as we can get it to the railway, we should have a little bit of leeway. There we go. And then how would we look if we came in and sat up alongside the rail with some of our sewage assets? Yeah, I think I'm on board with that. Okay, and then we'll come to road length. And then we'll see about getting these back to back. Yes, we can, just about, literally the perfect amount of space. Let's feed them, of course, into Palaven's water network. Very nice. And then maybe some more oil fencing as we kind of pass by these here, right? Kind of get this vibe developing on both sides of the interior harbour now. Okay. See it just beginning to develop, which I've been saying for like all of this episode, but there we go. It is coming together, isn't it? And I think what we'll round out kind of this side of the port with here is going to be maybe like a little office park, maybe. Maybe let's come with a fancier road. Maybe something with trees. Okay. And absolutely kind of HR and administration is the vibe that we're going for here. Let's come ahead and start getting in some larger kind of corner office assets. Okay. Let's maybe flesh out the road network a little bit internally, so we have some more zoning opportunities in a slightly different location. Let's come through here maybe as well, and then maybe one here. And we'll almost kind of border this off as if it's its own part of the port, right? Maybe let's come through some park fencing, and we're just going to hug the edge of the road with freeform. Okay. And then bring that up to there, a little bit like that. Okay, so we'll start to see what office assets we get generating in here. They're after a very kind of distinct vibe with these assets that are coming in, as with everything else in the build today. Okay, we'll just kind of let some come in, see what develops. And maybe like a little park asset as well, perhaps, almost as like a little information booth where you can kind of stop and find out, you know, what each building is within this little office park. So again, we have to be very careful about what assets are coming in here. See, this one totally takes away from it. This is not kind of what I'm after at all. Let's get rid of that one. Even though it's got like a bank decon, the Banhammer Bank. Never noticed that name before. But, you know, of course we're going to keep getting the same asset in. During the detailed time lapse we can refine this idea a little bit more, but you know, just a touch of HR administration for the port. Maybe somewhere to drop your papers or kind of, I don't know, whatever justification you want, right? If we included a little bit of office zoning, I think that's going to be okay. We'll kind of round out with some emergency services here. Let's place in maybe some of our larger kind of emergency assets, maybe coming from one of the larger fire stations. I think you definitely have like a local fire station on the port, right? It's going to blend into the assets as well. Similar kind of colour scheme and fence designs that we're very keen on. And we can maybe run with a police headquarters in here as well. Which again, you definitely have some kind of police or security presence around the port. We'll take away some of this stuff too. Okay, it's like the French police. Shout out to the French subscribers, everyone. Okay guys, but that does feel like a good place finally to jump into a detailed time lapse. We have a bunch of stuff to sort out over here, also with these kind of spaces that are left near the larger industrial assets. Going through paths, overgrowth, and also switch through some kind of plot the global industrial assets, see if there's any warehouses or stuff that we've forgotten about. I bring a nice repeated tree pattern to run parallel with the highway for this entire length, and it'd be really nice to come back through here and detail this side of the riverbank, most likely during a live stream. But yeah, that's it. Let's go ahead and detail Port Palaven, and we'll see what we're kind of looking like from the end, shall we? Okay guys, that is going to do it for today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, a like below is always appreciated. Even much if you haven't enjoyed it, please feel free to leave a dislike as well. Really happy with this. Some super difficult terrain to work with today, but I think we've managed to blend in that very harsh transition of height between where the highway is elevated by the river and down onto the port now as well. And it's nice to finally have some builds over in this part of the map. This map will predominantly be European. We'll kind of do like a European city centre over here, some suburb stuff. Basically everything we've already done in Palaven, but with more of a European vibe. Do hang around for the rest of the outro tag. You guys wouldn't have seen all of it, and this place should look pretty sweet at night, especially as we kind of get to be this close to the sunset over the ocean. I think should be very nice indeed. But otherwise, I will shut up and I will leave it there. I want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, enjoy the rest of your day.